Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men books as well as miscellaneous Marvel titles. So now it's on to the Avengers and Cosmic Marvel. Excuse me. Starting off with Avengers number 32. So, kind of a recap of sorts. Since reforming after the threat of the Celestial Final Host, I think it was a Final Host. The Celestial Host, basically. One of the Celestial Hosts there. The Avengers have made some enemies. Atlantis is taking a stand against namely Roxxon Oil, but anyone who stands in their way. Russia has reformed the Winter Guard and made them and has been doing everything possible to make them very much the Russian equivalent of the Avengers. Though the two did work together against both the forces of Atlantis as well as the forces of the Vampire Nation. And then there's the Squadron Supreme of America, run by the apparently very not dead Phil Coulson, who, it turns out, has been working quite a bit with none other than Mephisto, who has been imprisoned within the Hotel Inferno in Las Vegas. So obviously this is all taking place before the current arc of Ghost Rider. So, the issue begins showing the coronation, Namor's coronation as King of Atlantis, and discussing, and then going into some of the things he's had to face. Cybernetic perversions made by Roxxon, based on dolphins. And it also does bring up what Atlantis deals with. The kelp forests are shrinking and the reef gardens are turning brown and fallow. The children of Atlantis cower in oil-drenched squalor. The undersea army's ranks are as meager as its pride, while the kingdom's boundaries are even more threatened by bottom-dwelling barbarians and Lemurian mer pirates. Not to mention the unrelenting aggression of the air-guzzling invaders from above, such as Roxxon. They have declared open war on the people of the deep, dispatching drug-fueled cybernetic perversions to kill at will on some blood-red days under the sea. It is enough to drive a king to drink. And so, in the Marianas Trench, there exists the Davy Jones Saloon, the deepest bar in the world. And so, the king drinks there. Of note of the saloon are the signs on the door. No deviants, no wizards, no dogfish. Namor is talking as he drinks to the bartender, as many do when they drink, lamenting the fact that he must turn to his kingdom's most unsavory elements. Elements who hunger for nothing short of full-scale surface invasion. Namor sees himself as being the lone voice of restraint. And the bartender makes a suggestion to him. The Avengers stood in defense of Roxxon. Atlantis is not the only enemy made by the Avengers. There is, after all, the kingdom of the vampires. Speaking of which, we cut to Ukraine in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, where vampires being shooed away as the sun begins to rise. With Dracula watching in the shadows, saying, "To forge a new shadow nation, the strong are the devoted, the fervently damned. And only once he can smell that strength burning from here will They be granted a place in his kingdom and allowed to kneel before Dracula. However, Baroness Blood has some other thoughts. And mentions that they're not the only. Also mentions they aren't the only ones who've made an enemy of the Avengers. In Moscow, at Winterguard Mansion, the Winterguard return, and their butler suggests that he will offer aid. He can offer help against the Avengers. He brings up the fact that perhaps if the Winter Guard joined forces with King Namor or Dracula and his vampires, there are means of using them against the Avengers. This gets him promptly run through by the Red Widow, who orders the body taken to the Red Room so they can pull whatever answers they can from his brain. She then goes to her quarters with various blades jammed in the walls to meditate. At Avengers Mansion, Blade is getting ready to leave when Black Widow suggests he stay. Basically saying to him, and it's actually a really good speech, I know that look. I know a brooding anti-hero when I see one. I own a mirror. You're thinking you don't belong here with all these pretty folk. Because you don't fly and catch people who are falling. You don't move mountains with your bare hands. No kid anywhere in the world's got a poster of you taped to their wall, staring at it every day, wishing they could grow up to be just like you. You're not one of Earth's mightiest heroes. All you've ever been is a killer. And you're thinking it's way past time you got back to doing what you do best. You've been walking in the clouds, but now it's time to go back into the cage where you think you belong. The world is screaming for you to do it. There are so many vicious, utterly irredeemable monsters out there practically begging for you to come put a sword through their head. I know you don't know me, but I know you, Blade. We did just save each other's lives in outer space, so I hope you'll trust me at least a little bit when I tell you, don't go. Of course, it is not lost on Blade at all that she's telling him this as she herself is leaving. And she explains that she never leaves the Avengers, not for long. But she also talks about when she first joined the team, and she couldn't stomach their eyes on me, and she hated herself for thinking she was worth breathing the same air as them. She wanted to run away and bury her head in blood where she belonged. But she tells him that, the Avengers want him here. They need him. So be an Avenger because he's earned it. And give the rest of them the chance to earn the right to be your brothers and sisters for life. Boy Thing also agrees with her. Though he does say that the first person who calls him brother is getting fanged in the face. We then cut to Thor and Iron Man, who are looking over the baby star brand. Iron Man afraid that maybe, just maybe, it's his baby? Could that mean that he's a star brand too? Thor is feeling down as well concerning how he behaved during the mission in space. And he, under his breath, mentions he still hungers for raw space meat. But he tells the baby that Thor will be his godfather, or her godfather. Then Thor wants to know about Tony's time in the distant past. And Tony says, we'll talk about that some other time. Adding under his breath when Thor's too drunk to notice him crying. So he says he just wants to feel like himself again. He just wants to get back to work. So he asks Thor to remind him who's out there that we're supposed to be punching. In Washington, Phil Coulson is about to attend a major event. He's taking a phone call from a superior, about the potential of uniting the Avengers' enemies against them. saying he doesn't know how one could get wild cards like Namor and Dracula to work together, let alone once you bring in the Russians. But Coulson makes his speech, and we learn that he was talking to none other than Mephisto. And Mephisto was the bartender, has at least some sway over Baroness Blood, was also apparently had some sway over the, at least had some sway over the bartender, some sway over Baroness Blood, some sway over the butler, and of course some sway over Coulson. Back in Atlantis, however, it turns out Namor, maybe the bartender was right. And his kingdom does need allies against the Avengers. But not vampires and Russians. Something much more grand. And so he stands in the ocean's floor, speaking to the void. I knew you would hear my call. I've always been able to feel an ember of you, still smoldering in the back of my brain. Our joining was too brief, too misguided. I know you want more. I will give you everything you most desire. I will give you every part of me. Come to me, Phoenix. Help me lay waste to the Avengers, and I will set galaxies ablaze for you. And the issue ends with the Phoenix flying through space. Oh boy! For those unaware, during the Avengers vs. X-Men story arc, Namor, alongside Emma Frost, Cyclops, Colossus, and Magic, became the Phoenix Five, each one imbued with a shard of the briefly shattered Phoenix Force. And as each one of the five was beaten, their shard would then be split up among the remaining members, until it came down to the power of the Phoenix split between Emma Frost and Cyclops. Cyclops then betrayed Emma, defeated her, and became Dark Phoenix, and killed Xavier. Was brought down, arrested, broken out. Revolutionary Cyclops became a thing for a while. I'm not against the idea. There are some very excellent points to be made from that period, but yeah. So, Namor wants to host the Phoenix again. Only this time he wants the whole thing to himself. Yeah, that's going to end well. For everyone, I swear. Moving on to Thor, number 4. Where we left off, Thor, the Herald of Thunder, and King of Asgard, was helping Galactus basically, up his power levels to deal with the Black Winter. So far, there have been some destroyed planets. He has destroyed a planet, which brought the attention of none other than Beta Ray Bill. Thor and Bill fought it out, and Thor was quite possibly about to kill Beta Ray Bill when the all-seeing Sif arrived to stop him. So we begin with a shot of Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and it explains that Yggdrasil rots and withers and dies as the Black Winter blankets the heavens in search of our reality. The ancient Norse would name it Fimbulwinter. The ceaseless storm paves the path to Ragnarok, and they would be wrong. For where Ragnarok is a wheel, a cycle of death and rebirth, the Black Winter is the void in the center, devouring light and life and flowing only towards endless nothing. It is the one true end of us all, and the only thing that stands in its way is Thor. So, Sif stands between Thor and Beta Ray Bill, and speaks wisdom to her, tries to speak wisdom to her king. However, all it really gets is Mjolnir thrown at her. So she uses the Bifrost and makes a bridge to Jotunheim, where it crash lands in Loki's throne room. And then she continues to try and speak with wisdom to Thor, reminding him that not only is Thor not Odin, he is better than Odin. And yes, as the Allfather, he is restless in the role, and he thinks his best days are behind him, and the idea of dying fat on a throne cripples him. But he must not lose himself in his quest to prove he's still worthy. She knows that he's scared of the end. He interrupts her, saying he's not afraid of. However, she cuts him off and says, "Yes, he is." Because she knows, because she sees everything. In Jotunheim, Loki begins to look at Mjolnir, though, wondering, is this a trap, a joke, a test? And so he decides to try his hand as he has on many occasions previously. And he lifts Mjolnir, but only for a moment, as it is quickly yanked away. Back on the battlefield, Galactus bores of Thor's family squabbles, and he yet hungers. He sends the two of them home. He sends Sif and Beta Ray Bill home. We're back to Asgard. When Galactus asks if he's ready, Thor says not just yet, and reclaims the power cosmic that he briefly gave up in his fight against Bill. Kind of make it more fair. And so they go on to Silas, an uninhabitable minuscule mesoplanet and former home to a race of long-dead war sorcerers. The burial ground, rich in decomposing enchantments, added its dark power to Galactus' growing might. Next came IO-X4, home to a massive herd of gentle bear-like animals gifted with the power of telekinesis and precognition. They were ready and waiting to be evacuated when Thor arrived. Then came Vanish IVII, an ancient supergiant with a semi-sentient core of molten blood. It gave itself freely in the service to the coming fight. 4 planets sacrificed to save the universe. And then there was one more, planet Cryo. And so Thor arrives. The people, he tells people not to be alarmed. He explained that they know of Thor and what he wants, and they will not leave their home. However, their armies are assembled against him. They will aid in his fight. As he tries to negotiate with the people, Galactus begins consuming the planet. Thor tries to stop him, however, Galactus explains that the Black Winter is here. And for the King of Cryo, as with Galactus, the Black Winter looks very much like Thor. However, Thor himself rips a piece of his cape off and covers his eyes with it, so that he will not see the form his end will take. Thor uses a mixture of the power cosmic he's been imbued with, as well as lightning, to fire a blast at the Black Winter. The resulting blast right into the heart of the falling black storm could shatter entire continents. Buys Galactus exactly 14 seconds to devour the planet's core. And for the denizens of the planet Cryo, it buys them nothing. Galactus tells him that, it's done, but they gotta act quickly. Thor says that he knows it had to be done, but that makes it no better. When the winter is clear, Galactus will answer for the people of Cryo, and for all the lives he has stolen before it. And as the two stare down the black winter, they both agree, until it is done. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Hawkeye Freefall, number 4. Where we left off, Hawkeye, who has been masquerading as Ronan, using a stolen time travel device in order to appear to be in order to basically make it seem as though that Ronan is not actually him. As Ronan, he has been attacking the Hood, taking monies, and then using said monies to invest into the community. He came upon a mob safe house and as Ronan walked in, finding dead bodies all over the place. And Daredevil told him that the Hood had already been there and killed everyone inside, looking for Ronan. I could swear Hawkeye was aware that Daredevil's Matt Murdock. However, even though he's clearly wearing a Ronin outfit, Daredevil seems not to notice this. And kind of wonder, is Daredevil blind? But waving his hand in front of Daredevil's face, Hawkeye waves his hand in front of Daredevil's face. Daredevil does stop him, which leads Clint to say, okay, he's not blind. So they talk, and Daredevil informs Clint that a task force is meeting tomorrow at 1 a.m. outside the End-Town Market in Bensonhurst. So he meets up with the task force, running late. The task force being Winter Soldier, Falcon, and Night Thrasher. They wait and wait. And Hawkeye gets sick of waiting because, he knows Ronan's not going to show up after all. He is Ronan. And his time travel device is broken. So, he charges in head first and gets his ass kicked by the Hood. Thoroughly. And so, in the dirty basement of his apartment building, which is where Clint's now staying, Bryce arrives. He's got a first aid kit for him, and he's hacked Sword, gotten some information on aliens. So, Hawkeye hops on the G train and waits as the guy comes in and does a dance routine, gives the guy some cash, drags him out. They talk, and turns out the guy's a Skrull. Well, he wants the Skrull to impersonate him. He's in some of our task force is meeting up again, this time at the Red Hook docks. And there's been some added muscles, some additions to the team. Mockingbird, Hawkeye's ex-wife, and D-Man, who is taking a night off from his duties at Ravencroft to put on his super suit again. Oh, yes, and U.S. agent. who's totally not crazy after Captain America. So, Winter Soldier and Falcon, they decide this time to avoid people rushing in and jeopardize the entire mission. Instead, they'll be split up into groups of two. Falcon and Winter Soldier, D-Man and Mockingbird, and Hawkeye and U.S. Agent. U.S. Agent, they reminisce a bit about the old days. U.S. Agent saying, it's been a while, and he kind of misses the West Coast Avengers days. Misses working with the team. In fact, he sometimes almost misses working with Hawkeye, who also mentions he never misses anything and then knocks him out. And the Skrull shows up. And the same time that Bryce calls Clint to inform him that the LMD is loose. And in the Ronin suit. So Hawkeye puts an arrow through it. Hawkeye and the Skrull toss the LMD into the river. And the Skrull and Hawkeye change clothes. So as Ronin, he basically decides to show up and runs right into Spider-Man. The two duke it out, and Spider-Man pulls off his mask, exposing him. And he saw Hawkeye walk out dressed like Ronin, so followed him here. Meaning he saw the LMD walk out dressed like Ronin. Tries to say he's on a mission for Cap. And he ends up saying, begging, trust me, as my friend, please. Spider-Man buys it. And Clint rightly says in his own internal monologue that he's a piece of shit. So, they part ways. Bobby asks if Hawkeye, the Skrull, wants to go out for a drink. And he blows he pretty much has blown his cover by calling Mockingbird by her code name rather than Bobby. As he's leaving, the Skrull runs into worse than Avengers who aren't too fond of Skrulls. He runs into none other than one of the other contenders for greatest marksman in the Marvel Universe, Bullseye, who's pretty sure that he's not actually talking to Hawkeye. That is where the issue ends. Oh boy, Bullseye's involved now. Things just got even more fun. Of course, it makes sense that Bullseye would get involved as, the Hood has connections to Fisk. Bullseye is totally not on Fisk's payroll forever. So, yeah, fun times. Moving on to Ant-Man number 3. Where we left off, while investigating some missing bees in Florida, Ant-Man fought and then reluctantly teamed up with evil Nazi scientists turned into a swarm of bees, Swarm, and discovered there was an even greater threat. The Bug Lords. And their big plan is to wipe out humanity. However, the Bug Lords have discovered that, Swarm was cool being a living swarm of bees and all, but a man who can talk to bugs and make them large or small, that's even better. So, also, Ant-Man's daughter, Cassie Lang, formerly known as Stature, now going by Stinger, she's got an offer from Kate Bishop to join the West Coast Avengers. And her mother doesn't want her to take it, in part because her dad did move down to Florida to be closer to her. So at the anthill that Ant-Man's living in, yes, really, he's discussing things with. He's discussing the fact that the ant he left with didn't come back with him. So maybe Ant-Man could quit being a jerk. Then Stinger arrives, saying they need to talk. She tells him about the offer she's had, and he then explains that there's something bigger going on, and we need to go talk to the Avengers, the real Avengers, not the West Coast ones. In the Everglades, Bug Lords are getting information from others, and, well, yeah. Well, the other Bug Lords are angered, but Macrothrax and the other big evil bugs, well, yeah, they really don't care. So at the airport, Ant-Man calls up Iron Man. They talk, have some. They're kind words. They're not really kind words. Ant-Man mistakes a question as to whether or not he's close to his daughter for counseling, but no, it's a teleportation thing. And so they're teleported to Avengers Mountain. So Iron Man and Black Panther agree, figure they'll do make some. They find what they can about Macrothrax from the helmet, and they're also going to see if maybe they can, do some tinkering with the helmet and fix it a bit. And of course, Scott offers help, but yeah. Turns out, however, that there's something kind of familiar about Macrothrax in a database. Humbug, former villain turned low-level hero. Kind of changed his look a bit just before World War Hulk. And shortly after World War Hulk, and during World War Hulk, he was killed by the Brood Queen. However, his teammates, well, at least one of them can be tracked down. Black Cat, who at that point in New York is in New York, fighting bad guys on a roof with Spider-Man, who's basically Iron Man asks Spider-Man, "Hey, Ant-Man needs to talk to Black Cat. Think you can arrange something?" They should. So Ant-Man and Stinger show up after hearing Spider-Man talk shit about Ant-Man. They go into the catacombs underneath Madison Square Garden, which is where, during World War Hulk had his base of operations. And they find what's left of Humbug. However, it turns out that Thread, the massive silkworms, is there as well. So, a big fight between the four of them. Also of note during all this, Spider-Man is constantly talking shit about Ant-Man. Though, Black Cat is not is kind of, hey, you do your thing. Turns out, however, that the upgrades in the helmet actually worked pretty well and managed to seemingly stop Thread. At least the upgrades made to Stinger's helmet. So they get her free, they leave, and Ant-Man's griping about how, the things Spider-Man was saying, and Well, Cassie lets him on a point. Spider-Man was jealous of him. Explaining that he wasn't friendly because Black Cat was laughing at his jokes and always next to him and obviously liked him. It was driving Spidey crazy. And she thinks that Spider-Man being jealous of her dad is actually pretty cool. So, the Reds had to go to the Savage Land, however, deal with the other Bug Lords. However, the question does arise: if Savage was so important, why was Macrothrax there? That would be because he's attacking the anthill that Scott lives in, mainly to take his Pym particles, ordering his forces to take the Pym particles and kill any bug who would stand in the way. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Avengers of the Wastelands, number 3. Where we left off, our heroes had discovered a broadcast coming from a town, so they went to the town, finding Viv Vision not operational but plugged in to a radio and broadcasting. But at the same time, it turns out there was a horde of vampires led by Baron Blood, who were quite happy to potentially deal with fresh blood. However, we begin to connect to New York. Doom walks into a place and begins to look for the occupant of a warehouse. Turned out to be Dr. Octopus. Dr. Doom is attacked by Octavius, and while Doom talks, so does Octavius, but it's really just kind of it does come off much more as a recording, and it is in fact revealed that Octavius is long dead. In the Cedar City of Champions, the would-be Avengers of the Wastelands deal with the vampire horde and opt to work together, back to back, side by side, as a team. Thor manages to take down Baron Blood and then drops Mjolnir on his chest while she interrogates him. After the interrogation is seemingly over, during the interrogation, it does turn out that Doom's attacking towns that might possibly be housing heroes, and, well, seeing a group of them maybe is where you're justified. Apparently, though, Baron Blood and his vampires have been waiting in Cedar City of Champions for weeks. Basically saying, and he also claims that all the towns Doom's attacking, it's their fault. And then Cap uses his shield to cut off Baron Blood's head. Claiming, when he's called out on, he says that letting Blood talk anymore would be wasting their time. So, later on, Dwight has managed to fix Viv Vision. Barely. It's kind of hard because whoever designed her was just next level. But she comes back online and basically you get a sit rep. Meanwhile, Bruce has been tinkering with the head of one of the Doom bots, and turns out he can use it to track Doom's army. So they get ready to leave. But first they bury the dead of the town, and then Viv gives Grant, Captain America, something she found long ago. Captain America, the actual shield of Captain America. And they're still using the Doombot head to figure out how to, where the army is. But it turns out they're being watched by MODOK, as well as the Green Goblin, the Absorbing Man, the Enchantress, Shocker, and another villain when they identify him, I'm going to be probably absolutely shocked to find out who it is. But yes, it does appear that the Avengers are walking straight into a trap. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Nebula, number 2. Where we left off, Nebula had integrated the All-Seer system, a predictive analysis generator, into her cybernetics. However, it was not designed to be integrated into them, and so it did kind of fry her a bit, and then escaping from the space station it was being built on, blasting her way out, obviously. She crash landed on a nearby planet, and awoke with no memory as to who she is. So we begin on the planet Monjali. She has no idea who she is. She tries, her organic cybernetics are syncing up. The sync is 9% complete. She's getting some ideas, some flashes of memory of her past, her family, parents, brother, sister, being a rebellious teenager, but yeah. So her host, Adira, brings her water and has been tending to her wounds. And also explains maybe after she's feeling better, she should maybe try and fix her moisture collector. Explaining that it's actually illegal to have one, so she can't just take it to the manufacturer to have them look at it. So Nebula fixes her arm. However, company has arrived. Company who claims that it's clear that Adira has a moisture collector. She's only getting enough. She buys water every 12 cycles. It's seemingly only enough for her and her animals. Not enough to grow plants. Nebula, however, saves the day. The All-Seer works the way it's supposed to and points out some weaknesses, and so she utilizes them. Wins the day. So they decided they're going to try and find a way to get her off planet. There's really only one person who might be able to help. Ballista Grimm, who knows Nebula previously. Because Nebula has no idea who she is. And so they fight and but she does begin to regain some memories of fighting the gladiator pit. And she puts some of that to use against Ballista. And the issue ends with Ballista holding a gun to Nebula's head, and Nebula holding a knife to Ballista's throat. And that's all for this video. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.